Hi everybody, Leo Babauta here from Zen Habits, and today I'm going to talk about the practice of trusting yourself. Now, this is not something that people come to me and say like, I want to trust myself more, but it's actually underlying a lot of our difficulties. I'm going to give you a few things that you might have where you're like, I'm really struggling with this, where the practice of trusting yourself will actually help you. So one of them is procrastination. If you're having trouble with putting off tasks, avoiding, things like that. Another one is choosing, like deciding what to do today. I'm going to prioritize. I'm really stuck in indecision, so choosing or prioritizing. Feeling overwhelmed by all the tasks that we have to do. Taking risks, like putting ourselves out there in a bold way or doing something that's hard or scary or feels uncertain. Um, the path of self-growth. These are all places where self-trust becomes really difficult. Now, if you also have trouble like speaking in public, if you have trouble making presentations, if you have trouble having difficult conversations at work or in relationships, these are all about a lack of self-trust. So it's this one thing that's underlying all of these problems that you might be facing in your life. Now, the problems themselves are very human. If you're doing them, there's nothing wrong with you, but there's probably a lack of self-trust there. So let's talk about what we mean by self-trust and how it leads to these problems. And then I'm going to talk about the practice of self-trust, which I believe is transformative and can have an effect across all of these areas, health areas, fitness, eating, habit change, productivity, self-growth, putting yourself out there, starting a business, creating things, creating content online, all of these kinds of areas, relationships, doing well in your career, taking yourself to the next level in what you're trying to do, taking on hard and scary projects. All of these will be affected by this one simple practice of self-trust. Now, when I say simple, that doesn't mean easy. That doesn't mean it's going to go perfectly, but it's a very simple practice that you can really practice and be very intentional and conscious about this practice. And then what happens is everything gets easier. You feel more at calm, you feel more at ease with yourself, you're more able to put yourself out there and take chances. You're less likely to procrastinate. I'm not saying you'll never procrastinate, but you're less likely to. You feel less overwhelmed. Things just start to get easier with this one simple thing, which sounds a little bit gimmicky, but I'm telling you, it's true. I have seen this in my own life personally, but I also have worked with many people. In another video, I'm going to talk about the practice of trust working with a coach because I coach others and I'd love to talk to you about that, but that's going to be for another video. For now, let's talk about trust. So what are we talking about here? So let me give you a couple of examples. Let's say I'm like, I want to create this really cool music and I want to put it out there in the world, right? That would be really cool, except what's holding me back? I'm not creating the music. I'm not putting it out there. Maybe the creating part itself feels really uncertain. I'm not sure if I'm any good at it. I'm not sure if people are going to like this. And so I'm feeling some uncertainty. And so then I don't do it. Now, the uncertainty itself is a natural part of life, of the creative process, of anything that we're learning. So uncertainty itself is not a problem, but because we don't trust ourselves in this uncertain area, we don't actually start to take the steps forward. So I'm avoiding creating my music in this example, right? Because I'm feeling uncertain about it and I don't trust myself to try things out in this uncertainty. Now, if I make terrible music, so what? I'm learning. I'm actually practicing my art. But if I don't trust myself, I'm not practicing my art. I'm just not doing it. I just avoid it because it feels scary and uncertain. If I trusted myself, I could say, I'm going for it. I'm going to create my music. I'm going to play around with it. I'm going to make a mess. And then eventually I'll get better at it or I won't, right? Now, let's say I'm actually making the music. Now what? Well, let's imagine at some point I want to put it out there, but I'm really resisting that part. I'm like, oof, people might, criticize it. Maybe they won't like it. Maybe no one's going to care. Maybe I'm going to feel really embarrassed about putting this out there. And so, because I don't trust myself, I don't put it out there. I've made the music, but I don't want to let others in on this gift that I've made. I don't want to let them in the magic that I'm creating in the world. So I just kind of hide it, right? And that shows a lack of self-trust because if I trust myself, I'm like, let me put it out there. Maybe someone will like it, maybe they won't, but I can trust myself to deal with whatever happens, whatever the consequences are. Maybe someone's like, oh, that's disgusting. Okay, probably not, but let's just imagine. So then I can just trust myself to say, oh, that hurt a little bit. Maybe I can take care of myself. Maybe I can see that this person, has some issues and I can like care about their issues, but not take that personally. Maybe I can see where my ego is getting tangled up and start to practice with that. But none of these things are necessarily a problem just because someone didn't like my music. So what I'm showing you here is that if we trusted ourselves, the uncertainty about creating music, the uncertainty about putting myself out there is not a problem. Now, if people criticize me, that's not a problem either. I can trust myself to deal with whatever comes. So that's one area is creating, putting yourself out there. Let's talk about fitness and let's talk about relationships. Let's see where self-trust lies in these. So fitness, maybe I'm like, I want to get in shape, right? I want to go out there and exercise and get in shape, whatever. Maybe I want to go for runs. Maybe I want to go to the gym and do some workouts, whatever it is, right? But then I'm like, oh, I don't know how to run. Like maybe I need to take a course. Maybe I need to sign up for some coaching. Maybe I need to, Google it. And so maybe I'm doing a whole bunch of research and I'm overwhelmed by it. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I'm going to do it badly. You can see here, it's a lack of trust in myself. If I trust in myself, I can just be like, let me just go out there and try it. Maybe I'll read a book, get some information. Maybe I'll watch some YouTube videos. But in the end, I'm going to try things out and I'm going to learn from the trying. And so putting myself out there and, exercise is not that such a big deal. I'll learn as I go. And maybe I'm going to have some places where I fall on my face, but that's a part of the learning process, right? Maybe I'm worried about looking bad at the gym. People are going to think bad about me. But if I trust in myself, I could just go to the gym, do my workout. Others are going to have their reaction, and I'm going to deal with that. So I can trust myself to deal with whatever comes, including someone's judgment. Most likely, they're not going to judge you because people are caught up in their own crap. People go there to work out for themselves, or maybe they're going to admire themselves in the mirror, but they're not paying any attention to you. Um, so that's usually like a made up thought in our mind. But even if they did, let's imagine in that case, for some reason, someone at the gym like judges you. It's like, oh, this person doesn't know what they're doing. First of all, that's their issue. That's not my issue to deal with. But even if I feel judged or somehow, ridiculed or whatever, I can trust myself to deal with that. It's like, ooh, that hurts, smarts, right? So I can go and like take care of myself. Like, oof, maybe I talk to a friend, maybe I get on a call with a therapist, maybe I give myself some love, maybe I take a nice hot bath and like soothe myself, whatever it is, but I can take care of my hurt feelings. It isn't that I have to protect myself from ever getting hurt. It's that I trust myself that when I do get hurt, I can handle that. This is emotional resilience that I'm developing through taking risks and dealing with whatever happens. So that's fitness. And this would be the same with learning anything, putting myself out there, doing anything really that I'm uncertain about. Learning, an instrument, learning to play chess or Go or poker or whatever it is you want to learn, learning a sport, um, What else? Relationships, right? Let's say I am avoiding having difficult conversations. Why is that? I'm afraid that this person's going to get upset when I share my honest truth with them, and then they're going to get mad at me, and I'm going to like, that sucks. I don't want people to be mad at me. It stresses me out. And so here there's a lack of trust again. I don't trust myself to be able to have this conversation and then deal with their reaction. I don't trust myself to be okay if someone else is not happy with me. That's a lack of trust in myself. Now, what if instead I just trusted myself? Then I would just speak my truth. I'd be like, you know what? I have a difficult conversation, feeling a little bit nervous about this, but I really like to talk to you about something. I want to share with you like how I felt the other day when you said this thing to me. Now, I want to be clear that you didn't do anything wrong. You weren't trying to like be like a jerk to me. I really get that. You were trying your best. And yet it did hurt me a little bit. And I wanted to share with you that about that and why that is. So I'm going to share with you, and I'm hoping that you'll receive it. But I'm also just going to trust you to have whatever reaction you have. So here is what I'm going to share with you. So I share it with you. Now you're like, oh, like I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why you're always complaining about me. And so you have your reaction, and I'm going to feel I'm going to trust you to feel how you feel. Have whatever reaction you have. That's the trust that I have in you. And then I'm going to trust myself to be able to be with your reaction and my own reaction. It's like, oof, that feels a bit hard to like have you react in this way. So now I need to take a little bit of a time out. You know what? I think I need to take a little bit of a break, and I'm going to kind of let myself process your reaction. So then you go take a break, you sit with it, you process it. Not a big deal. In relationships, these kinds of things happen all the time, right? This is a part of growing deeper in our intimacy, connecting with each other, having a long-term intimate relationship. And yet, as like, I want to avoid this kind of intimacy where we're both having our reactions. So instead, what if I trusted myself to speak my truth, allow you to, maybe I'm going to mess that up a little bit, but that's okay. Allow you to have your reaction, and then allow myself to have my reaction, and then trust myself to be able to deal with that reaction. That's the trust. It's not trust that I'm going to do it perfectly and manage your emotions so that you don't have any kind of bad reaction, so I don't have to be uncomfortable. It's trusting that it's okay for you to have whatever reaction you have to me being able to be authentic in this relationship. And then trusting that I can have a reaction and that that's okay. All of it is okay. And I can deal with that. My own emotions, soothe myself, emotionally regulate myself. And then we can emotionally regulate each other as well. Okay, so these are some areas, but it's in all the areas that I've mentioned. Self-trust underlies all of this. It's the trust to put myself out there, to take chances, to try things, and then to deal with whatever comes. That is real self-trust. Now, if you have this, everything becomes so much easier. You're willing to take chances, do things that feel uncertain, make a mess of things, speak honestly to people, stumble and trip over your own words, make beginner mistakes, all of these kinds of things. People have their reactions, people have their judgments, and I can just soothe myself and then deal with whatever reaction comes up in me and in you. I was talking to someone who's an artist, and they were talking about, oh, I really am afraid that my art is going to cause a negative reaction in others. Like they're going to be like feeling judged, or they're going to feel this or that. And so we talked about it, and I said, what's your take on art having some kind of really strong reaction, positive or negative? And they're like, oh, actually, that's something I really believe in. I really believe that art, we want art to have a reaction. And sometimes that's going to be negative. It's going to bring up stuff for people, and that can be healing if the person is allowed to let this shadow side come out. That's healing for all of us. And so actually art having, provoking a negative reaction, that's not necessarily what we're trying for. We're just being honest with our art. But actually, it's okay if some people have a negative reaction, and others are going to be like, "Oh, that was amazing," but some people are not, right? We don't want like beige kind of art that like doesn't, like everyone is just okay with. We want something that's going to be like, oof, that really made me have an emotional reaction, or that really made me think about things, or question things, or that really made me like offended sometimes, or lit up with joy in other times. That's art. And so that's trust that others can have whatever reaction they have, and that's okay. And I can deal with that. Sometimes that's not always fun. It's not always the reaction I was hoping for, but I can deal with whatever happens. Okay, so that's self trust in a lot of different areas in our lives. There's a lot more that we can go into, but I want to talk about the practice of self trust. What does that look like? Well, the practice, first of all, is just notice like, oh, this area is an area I'm really struggling to trust myself. I have a hard time prioritizing. I have a hard time choosing. I'm stuck in indecision. I'm procrastinating on this thing. Wherever you notice these kinds of things, say, ooh, there's a lack of trust here in myself. So if you recognize it, great. So look, you might take some time to reflect, where don't I trust myself? Where would it be amazing to trust myself? So that's the first area. It's just kind of a first thing is just identify where that trust is lacking. It's hard to see sometimes, but if you see it, then you can practice in it. Second, ask yourself, how would I act if I trusted myself completely? What would I do here? What would I say? How would I act? So if I trusted myself completely, I would just choose what I'm going to do for today and prioritize it, put it into some order that feels good, and then trust myself. Go with it. That's what I would do. I wouldn't, agonize. I wouldn't do a bunch of hand wringing like, oh, is this going to be right or wrong? I would just choose. Boom, 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 boom. Order it in the way I'd like. This is my plan for today. And then trust myself. Sometimes the plan has to change. Trust myself that this is going to be okay to focus on these things and not the other million things I need to do. Trust myself to be able to take on each one of these and trust in this task, trust myself in this area, trust myself with this project, trust myself with this meeting. So what would I do? I would just choose. How would I act if I had to go into this meeting that I'm feeling nervous about? If I completely trusted myself, I'd be like, oh, I would just trust that I know what I'm talking about. I would trust that I'm going to be okay. I might stumble a little bit, but that's okay. We're human. I would trust myself to deal with whatever happened, including people's reactions. I would just go in there completely relaxed. If I trusted myself, I would just be like, totally fine. I'm going to go into this meeting. I'm going to rock it, right? Like, no problem. By the way, this is how I go into meetings. I sometimes do a little prep for meetings if I need to, but a lot of times I'm just like, I know this stuff. I'm just going to go in there and do it. I'll do webinars like that, not having, maybe I'll type out a few notes, but I don't type out a whole script. I don't have everything all planned out. I just go in trusting myself. I've given talks in front of crowds, trusting myself. Maybe I thought about the main points I want to do. I like think about, okay, I want to talk about these three or four things, but I'll just talk. Sometimes I do a presentation with slides and stuff like that, but I don't script it out. I just have the things on the slides and I look up and I'm like, oh yeah, this, and this. I know this subject very well. I don't need to script it. So this is what it looks like to trust yourself. You just feel relaxed and you're like, I can handle whatever comes. I can go to a conference and talk to dozens of people and just be totally okay. I don't need to have everything, under control. So you don't need to control as much. You don't need perfectionism as much. So identify where you're lacking in trust and see like, wow, if I trusted myself in these areas, life could be this way, right? Whatever you think about how it could be. And then ask yourself, what would I do if I completely trusted myself? How would I act? What would I do here? And then do those things. Act as if you trusted yourself. Now, if some people are going to say, Leo, isn't that fake it till you make it? Kind of, kind of. But we're not faking it. We're just going to practice trusting yourself. It's like, okay. And I'm not talking about arrogance or overconfidence. Like everything is perfect. I am perfect. It's not like that. It's like, hey, I'm going to trust myself to be able to try this, not need to get it perfect, and then deal with whatever mess happens on the other side if there is any. Most of the time, there's no mess. Things go great. Sometimes there is. You step on someone's toe by accident, and you're like, oh, oops, like I actually care about your toe. Anything I can do there? And then you move on. Okay, so the third part of self-trust is to deal with whatever comes. Someone's going to have a reaction. You're like, ooh, I'm sorry I caused that reaction in you. If that's appropriate, take responsibility for your impact. Clean up your messes. Own things, but also learn from things. Take care of yourself, your own reaction when you have it. Deal with whatever happens on the other side. That's where real trust comes in, is when you not just put yourself out there or take the actions or choose, but you deal with what happens on the other side with whatever happens. So what you're learning is trust that you can deal with whatever happens. Now, this takes practice. If you'd like to practice this, get some support, because it's really hard to practice trust in ourselves without the help of someone else. That's going to sound a bit paradoxical. It's like, I'm going to trust myself, but I need someone else's help. Well, sometimes it's hard to even see where I'm not trusting myself. Sometimes it's hard to deal with what's on the other side, and I could use some support when things are all going a huge mess and I'm feeling like I've disappointed others and I'm like, this all sucks. I might need some reminding, like this is sometimes how it goes. And could I learn to be with their reaction, with my reaction, and not need to run from any of this? So if you'd like that kind of support, come and talk to me. I'd love to help you. I coach others, and I think coaching is a great way to practice self-trust, is in partnership with a coach who's helping you to develop that. I think it's the best way actually to develop self-trust. Now you can practice on your own. I don't think there's a problem with that. If you do it in community with my community, Fearless Living Academy, which is at fearlessliving.zenhabits.net. Come and join us. We do self-trust practices in the community. fearlessliving.zenhabits.net. That's my Fearless Living Academy. If you'd like to work with me as a coach, I'm taking in new people right now. And so check out coaching.zenhabits.net. Coaching, you'll see a little bit about my coaching. You can click on it and come and talk to me. I do have a charge for that, but I'm also open to people making an offer to me if you can't afford my coaching. I'm pretty flexible if you have some kind of financial need, but otherwise commit yourself to this kind of practice, and what will happen will be well worth the commitment. Okay, my friends, I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you practice self-trust however you decide to do it. I'm Leo from Zen Habits. Please like this video if it's been helpful. Comment below with any questions you have or any reactions you have. And then subscribe if you'd like to see this kind of content on a regular basis. I love subscribers. We've been growing the channel, and I'd love to keep growing the community, because this kind of content is so fun to create when people are a part of the community. Okay, my friends, I'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.